Hello, wonderful people. I have an awesome topic to share with you today, and this is life from a quantum perspective. And this is about combining the principles of spirituality with quantum physics and how to apply it to our lives so that we have lives that are much more fulfilling, happier, less stressful, more abundant, more joyful, just really having the lives that we came here to live. And so, when you understand these principles and know how to apply them to your life, it's really amazing in terms of what people have been able to do with them, and in terms of being able to turn their lives around and drastically change their lives. So let's get started on this topic. And like, I know you're probably thinking, quantum physics and spirituality, how do they even relate to themselves? How do they fit together? Well, we're going to discuss that. We're going to talk about that. And when you see how they fit together, you'll be like, oh, wow. And it just really, when you approach life from this perspective, it becomes much less complicated. It's really amazing how much less complicated it becomes. So, without any further ado, let's get started on this topic. I just wanted to thank the Betty J. Henderson Hopkins Foundation for sponsoring this talk. So, let's get started. So we're going to start from a foundation. We're going to start from this quote. If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And this is a quote by Nikola Tesla. And he was I don't know, person ahead of his time. I mean, he really had some amazing, groundbreaking, paradigm shifting theories and ideas and stuff. And it was unfortunate how they weren't embraced by society, because I think society would have been very, very different today if they were. So I'm going to bring back one of these paradigm shifting ideas again to be the basis and foundation of this talk. So again, if you think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration, you can open the secrets of the universe. What does that mean? Okay, when you understand these secrets, you don't have to struggle in life, because it opens the life up to you. It again makes it less complicated. So that's because the foundation is energy, frequency, and vibration. So what does that mean? Okay, so when the secrets of the universe are delivered through the application of quantum physics with the principles of spirituality, that is what is a paradigm shifting, and that's what opens things up. That's what makes things more simple. So let's get started. And we're going to start with the case for the quantum. Okay, case for the quantum physics and how that applies, how that relates to us. So under quantum physics, everything is energy. Science has proven that objects are both particles and waves. They've actually taken an electron, which is a particle, and they've seen that when it moves, it actually moves, has a wavelength, it has a frequency. So it's just on a micro scale. But what's on a micro scale affects and creates what's on the macro scale. So what we see in our everyday lives, we might not see it the same way as we see it under the quantum scale, but it is the same principles. So let's look at Einstein's theory of special relativity, where we have E equals mc squared. Now E stands for energy, okay? M is mass, and C is the speed of light squared. So we know the speed of light is amazingly fast, hugely fast, and you take that and you square it. So you times it by itself. And so what you have is you have a small amount of mass can create a huge amount of energy. But that's the relationship. So matter or mass and energy are just different manifestations of the same thing. And they can go back and forth. So you can take energy, focus a huge amount of energy, and create a little amount of mass. So this means that everything around us, all the matter that we see around us, it's really an energy frequency. Okay? It's really a a representation of energy, stored energy. We can consider it that way. So when you observe the wave-like system, here's another thing under quantum physics, is observing the wave-like system at the quantum level affects the state of the system. So this is the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. And that's really profound, because that means when you are focusing on something, it affects what you're looking at. That's basically what this is saying. So our focus influences the state. So what ultimately this says on a macro level, okay, is we influence our reality by what we focus on. Very, very, very profound. Now, we've heard this before, but this is being explained from the quantum physics level, so you can kind of take it out of the woo-woo, airy-fairy, you can take it out of that and then look at it from the quantum physics, from the scientific level, and see that it's not an airy-fairy concept. It's actually very real, and we're doing it all the time, whether we're aware of it or not, or whether we want to admit it or not. So if everything is energy, and our relationship to our world is actually at an energetic level, okay, so remember Tesla's quote there, in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Everything is represented by an energetic frequency. And again, this means that our world is influenced by our thoughts. From the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, our world is influenced. So our energetic world out there, influenced by our thoughts. So let's get into this a little bit deeper so you can just really understand how that relates to us and how much that's true. So we have our senses, and our senses are really energetic frequency detectors. And you might be like, what? What are you talking about? Well, let me explain it to you. This represents the skin, that first thing there, image there. That's what that represents. And through our skin, we can detect heat and cold. Now, what that is that's a frequency band on the electromagnetic energy scale. Okay, there's something called electromagnetic energy. It's what makes the sunlight, all right, that we see. It's ultraviolet light, infrared light, and all of that is on electromagnetic, cosmic rays. I already said ultraviolet. All of that is on the electromagnetic energy frequency scale. So our skin represents one band, which is the infrared, all right? And that's the higher the frequency in the infrared scale something is, the hotter it is, all right? The lower, the colder it is. So our skin detects that. It sends those signals to our brain. Our brain interprets, oh, this frequency means hot, or this means cold. The next image is an eyeball, and that detects another band on the electromagnetic frequency or electromagnetic energy scale, right? That's visible light, okay? And that's the light that we can, see with our eyes. And again, our eyes pick that up and it sends it to our brain, and it tells us what we're seeing. It interprets it for us. So our brain is interpreting the signals that our senses are giving us to just kind of determine the world around us, the energies, frequency world around us, that we interpret as matter, as mass, as whatever it is that we're looking at. The other thing, the ear, that detects another type of frequency called sound frequency, another type of energetic frequency called sound frequency. It's not on the electromagnetic scale, but it is an energy frequency nonetheless. And again, our ears, I think, detect, human ears can hear between 20 hertz and, not 20K, excuse me, 20 hertz to 20K hertz. So that's the range that the human ear can actually detect and pick up. Now, animals like dogs, they can go higher, and elephants can go lower, but it is what it is. So again, ears detect frequency, sends it to our brain, and our brain determines or detects it as sound. Okay, so it's another aspect of interpreting the world around us from an energetic point of view. And you might say, okay, well, what about taste and smell? So taste and smell, which represents these next two images, they are also detecting frequencies. The reason why we don't see them as frequencies is because we haven't developed yet the scientific instruments to detect the frequency of taste or detect the frequency of smell. They're a little bit more complex than a single frequency. We just haven't detected those instruments yet. But once we do, then we will see that those are also frequencies that we detect. And also, too, I want to go back to this one real quick with touch, because touch we can also detect textures and different things like that. We haven't developed the scientific instrument to interpret a texture as a frequency yet. So that's why we don't see it that way. But once we do, then we can have total and complete what do you call it? AI, not AI, but virtual reality. We can have total and complete virtual reality when we develop those instruments to be able to detect that, because then we can reflect that in a program or whatever, what have you, like we can with sound and sight. Okay. Now, the brain interprets the frequencies detected by our frequency-based senses, which we just discussed. Now, the other interesting thing is not only does our brain receive these frequencies, but it also transmits frequencies through our thoughts. Now, remember what I said earlier, what we focus on, which is really our thoughts, includes our thoughts, also affects our environment. So just as we are energetically affected by our environment, we affect our environment. And you can see more about this on the resonance in residence. There's a video on YouTube where if you search for that, resonance in residence, you'll see it's very fascinating. It'll show how our thoughts affect us, how we're affected by other people's thoughts. Like, have you ever walked into a room and you felt a certain tension, like something happened before you walked in, don't know what happened, but when you walk in afterwards, you feel the tension of what happened, because people have this certain focus that they're just projecting wildly out into the environment, and you pick up on that and you can feel it. So also sometimes when you're interacting with somebody else, you feel kind of weird around them or uncomfortable or whatever. You're picking up on their thoughts, so, and what they're projecting. So it's a real thing, okay, and it's something that you again, part of the think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. All right, the quote from Nikola Tesla. This fits into that as well. So the underscore of that is we can influence our reality simply by our thoughts. So that is very, very important. So if we want to change our reality, okay, we change our thoughts. So the question is, how in command are we of our thoughts, right? Because if we're thinking all kinds of things and we're affecting our reality, wouldn't you want to know how in command of your thoughts you are? Don't you think that would be kind of important? Because you're just spraying them out all over the place, and it's affecting your life. So it's a pretty important, pretty key that we become in command and become aware of our thoughts. So This brings in the case for spiritual principles, because that is what we use to become aware and to be able to change our thoughts. So the law of spiritual quantum energy. In each and every moment, we are in one or the other of two states of energy. And in each and every moment, we are projecting out into the environment, one state or the other. So that means we're always thinking. Have you ever walked around where you're not thinking something? Okay? Whether it's conscious or subconscious. You might not necessarily consciously be thinking something, but on the subconscious level, you're still projecting. So we'll discuss that in a moment. So you're always doing this. You're never not projecting something. You're never not. So we're going to talk about what these states of energy are, which is really a state of our thought. Okay, whatever thought, every time we think a thought, it's going to be in one of these two states. And the two states of existence are anger, fear, or being unconditionally accountable and responsible simultaneously with self and others. All right, now this is from the Freedom is Internal System by Veronique. Now the reason why this other one right here, this one has such a long description, is because I want you to understand what this means. So unconditionally accountable and responsible. That means you're not judging, okay? You're accountable and responsible, meaning that you take responsibility. It's about you. What you do, what you're aware of, your choices. You take responsibility and become accountable for it. So that means anything any harm that's caused or anything like that, you're accountable for making repair on the harm that you've caused somebody else. And so with yourself and with others simultaneously. And that means you allow them to be accountable and responsible for the harm they caused. So that means that if you are taking on somebody else's responsibility, or you're not holding them responsible for what they've done or the harm they've caused, then you're not in the state. Okay? Doesn't mean that you judge them as good or bad. It's just an energetic state. That's all I want. The anger, fear is just an energetic state, and being unconditionally accountable and responsible simultaneously with self and others, that's just another energetic state. And that's it. So those are the two states of existence that you can be in. Can't be in both of them at the same time. It's like a light switch. You know, the light switch is on, it's in one state, or it's off, and it's in the other state. It can't be on and off at the same time. So you might say, well, what if it's on a dimmer switch? Still on. Still on. So, all right. Now, what's the other name of this state of being unconditionally accountable and responsible simultaneously with self and others? It's called love in its innocence. So if you want to shorten it to love, but I wanted to give you the definition first because most of us have a mixed perception of what we think that love is. So we don't see it in the reality of what it is, in the energetic state of what it is. We see it as like an emotion, you know, like, well, he shows me that he loves me when he shows his jealousness, or he's possessive because he loves me. It shows that he loves me. No, that's not love. That's not love. Okay, that's actually anger, fear. All right, so that's why I wanted to give the definition first, so you're not putting your own perception, which may be actually anger, fear, onto it, because then it would be very confusing. So that's why I did it the way that I did. Now, when you're in these two states, okay, they have different outcomes. So when you're in anger, fear, the outcome of anger, fear is some form of loss, lack, illness, stress, struggle, sacrifice. That's just what that energy brings. It's just the nature of the energy. That's what the nature of the energy creates. It just is what it is, not good or bad, lesser or greater. That's just what it creates, okay? Love in its innocence, what it creates is grace, ease, abundance, happiness, hope, health, all right? And that's what that creates. And it just, the nature of that energy, all right? Again, not good or bad, just the nature of the energy, okay? So, how can you tell what state you're in, all right, in either of these two states? What can give you some sense of awareness, or maybe a red flag, what have you, or something that you can tell if you're interested in folk being one state over the other? And that's the words that you speak. What are your beliefs? It's the thoughts that you think, again, like I said earlier, and the reactions that you have. Are you reacting, or are you responding to something? How do you react? Do you go from 0 to 500 with something that's relatively minor? Okay, you have an overreaction to it. You know, what words do you use? Are your words constructive or destructive? Okay, so that's one of the things that can help, like, determine our state that we exist in. Or we're either in anger, fear, or we're in love, okay, which is unconditionally accountable and responsible simultaneously with self and others. So, again, the energy creates, the state of energy that we exist in is going to create the outcome. It's going to create a reality. So, just summing this up, in each and every moment, we are either creating from anger, fear, or we are creating from love and its innocence. And I discussed earlier what the outcomes of that. And what the good news is you can switch from one energy state to the next in a moment. You don't have, if you notice that you're in anger, fear, and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't really want to experience what this is creating if I stay here, you can switch from love and innocence to the state of love and innocence, right? So one thing that I want to share also is you can manifest with either energy. So the question is, will you be satisfied with the result of the energy you choose to manifest with? Because I want to say this because sometimes people say, well, I know this guy, he's angry all the time, but he's a multimillionaire. He has a lot of money and stuff. He drives nice cars, he's got nice watches, and eats fancy restaurants. So the thing is that when you manifest with anger, fear, or your manifestations, they don't last, and they come with some sort of sacrifice. Or if the manifestations, so you have to keep recreating over and over and over again the manifestation to keep it to last. So it's like if this guy's a millionaire, he has to constantly put energy into creating the millions of dollars. He has to constantly sacrifice something. So when you look at people like that, it's like, yeah, they might have a lot of money, but they may have terrible relationships, or their health may be horrible, or they may have sacrificed their integrity, okay, and nobody, or their friendships, all right, or their well-being, their sense of wellness. They've sacrificed something to gain that. So that's just the nature of what creating and manifesting with anger, fear gives you. It's just the nature of the energy, okay? Not good or bad, lesser or greater. It's just the nature of that energy. Now, love in its innocence, when you manifest with that, your manifestations are long-term, and they require no sacrifice. So when you're manifesting through love and innocence, you have your relationships, you have your health, you have your happiness, you have your integrity. You have it all. It's this. You can have your cake. This is the energy of having your cake and eating it too. And not only can you have your cake or eat it, you can have seconds and thirds of the cake. You can eat the whole cake. You can eat another cake on top of that, and you're not sacrificing anything. So that's the nature of manifesting or creating through love and its innocence. And that's, you're creating through that when you're constantly projecting thoughts in that energy frequency. And you're manifesting through anger, fear when you're constantly projecting your thoughts in that frequency. So the reason, why does it work this way? So it works this way is because the foundational energy frequency of the universe is that of love and its innocence. So it's kind of like they found like the background radiation to the universe exploding. So it's a frequency, okay? But the foundational frequency of the universe, that's the foundation. So when you're in anger, fear, you're at a frequency that's different to that of the universe. So it's really difficult to magnify what you're projecting into the world. That's where you have to sacrifice all this stuff to be able to manifest that way, because it's like you're swimming upstream. And so you're taking energy from other parts of yourself, energy that would go into your well-being, that would go into your healthy relationships, that would go into your own health, and pushing it, using it to push against, to create, let's say, wealth or whatever. So you so you're going against the grain. Now when you're manifesting through love and innocence, you're allowing the universe to support you in creating your intention, because it's the same frequency. And so you can magnify the frequency you're projecting to the world. So you don't have to take all this from the energy from other areas of your life to create with. And you're not sacrificing anything. So that's why it is that way. So again, it's simply a recipe. There's neither manifestation is right or wrong. It's just what you want to experience in your life. Both have their purposes. And like a recipe, you need to bring the correct ingredients to make what you want. So if you want angel food cake, you can't bring the ingredients for meatloaf, right? So if you're thinking, if you're wanting grace, ease, and abundance and health and happiness in your life, you can't keep thinking thoughts that have the frequency of anger, fear, because you're not. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work. You got to think the thoughts in the energy frequency band of love and innocence. Love and innocence. So the question is, what ingredients, quote unquote, thoughts, all right, are you willing to invest in to have what you want? That's the key. Well, this is the first part of this interview, or not interview, excuse me, the first part of this presentation. So I'm going to do a part 2, and in the part 2, I'm going to discuss how these principles fit into our everyday life, okay? Using tools to accomplish the change in your life. So what kind of tools can you use that can support you in being in, let's say, the energy of love and innocence, okay? Because we really don't need to practice or any help being in anger, fear energy. We have that down pretty well. So I'm going to make an assumption here, the fact that if you want to continue to keep listening to this, you're interested in being more in the frequency, vibration of love and its innocence. So how do you accomplish the change of getting into that frequency? And then what action steps you'll have to take so you can have what you say you would love in your life. So that's going to be part 2 of this talk. And until then, I'll see you. If you have any questions, please leave a comment in the video. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks.